So I'd like to welcome Paula Parker to our podcast. It's called At the Kitchen Table, where we guide, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs. I'm just so grateful that you're here, and I'm Amanda DiVito-Parle, so thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
It's 10 degrees outside.
It is a cold day.
It's 25 in my town.
You hail from where, and what are you doing these days, Paula? What are you up to?
I live in Frisco, Colorado, which is not the same as Frisco, Texas, or San Francisco. However, that's what the people think. And what am I doing? I am selling real estate.
For how many years? Long time, right?
100 million. No, not as long as you, I don't think. I'm in my 21st season of being licensed, and 25, kind of, the first few were reluctant participation in the office.
Where did you grow up?
So this is an interesting question. Down the road,
Okay.
Zhang Street, next to Welchester Elementary School.
Okay, in Golden.
In Jefferson, unincorporated Jefferson County. But on the way down here, which is an hour and 7 minutes or so, I listened to your podcast because I was like, I'm going to have to decide what to say. And you and I have extremely parallel lives. You're just about 20 years behind me. But I didn't know the backstory, Joe's backstory. I didn't know the digging ditches and steamboat backstory. Mm-hmm. I didn't know the rise to riches story that is so similar. Mm-hmm. So similar. But anyway,
I think this is why we're friends, because every time I see you, we can go deep really fast.
Yeah. And there are few people in my sphere that get that, especially with the Jefferson County connection, and then this pioneer of skiing connection. And in particular, we're going to go skiing in Aspen because it's cool connection.
Right.
We could do a whole nother podcast about that.
I know. Well, we can do it right now. We're here.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, because I do want to understand, how did you end up going into the mountains? So you grow up in Jefferson County. Your mom and dad were down here. You have a bunch of siblings.
Yeah.
And
I'm the youngest.
But you have a bigger family, right?
Like 4.3 children. I say that sort of facetiously. There are 4 of us, plus one of my brother's best friends that basically grew up at our house, thanks to a bad situation in his family.
Yeah.
But I consider him a brother because he started living at my house when he was 10 and I was 1, so I didn't know any different.
I see.
But anyhow, yeah, 4 kids, youngest. So as the youngest, and I feel like this is parallel to your life.
Yeah. I love it.
I, as a child, did not live through the struggle years, right? Like newly married. My dad moved here from Virginia, new state, new kids, new post-war, blah, blah, blah. I came along in the 60s. I consider myself a first-year Gen X, even though I'm the last year of a boomer, but I identify way more with the Gen X group. I think that's in part because of having to be scrappy. I was the youngest. My mom was like,
nobody
just
was paying
don't die.
attention.
We'll see you at dinner time.
Come along.
Yeah,
right.
Those memes that you see on the internet are true about when it's dark, you come home. If the sun is up, you can leave. You have a bike, get yourself there. Here's $1. That ought to stretch you out. My mother used to say, make it last. I don't know how you do that, but we used to have this way of saving 25 cents or 10. First it was 10 and then it was 25 cents with the payphone, from Bell Junior High. Put the money in the slot, say to the operator, I want to make a collect call. And then we had a Ford Capri or a Ford station wagon. And I would say to the operator, I'd say, collect call from Mrs. Capri. And that meant, Mom, come get me. It's only me. It was a pretty small car. Collect call from Mrs. Ford meant I and all my friends need rides home right now, so bring the wagon. And then you'd hang up, and she'd say, I don't accept that call. Hang up, and your quarter would come back. So as I was listening to your chat with Dwayne, and if we are to roll together, I walked in the door here today thinking to myself, well, she's already talked to Dwayne and she's got her own story, so what the hell else do I have to say? Nothing. In fact, I owe my career in real estate to Dwayne Duggan.
Right.
Dwayne, if you're listening, you bastard.
She asked me in advance if she could curse on my podcast, and I said yes.
Calling names is never good. But anyhow.
But talk about the ski town. So this is how you get there.
So how I got there. Yeah. So grew up in Golden. My father was an engineer. He joined or began a successful design build firm in Boulder, Colorado. The offices were, as far as I knew, again, I'm the youngest by 12 years, so my perception of what went on doesn't really gel until like I'm 10 years old, right? 8, 9, 10. But so by the time I'm kind of cognizant of what my dad is doing, he had a pretty well-established engineering company on the corner of Broadway and Spruce. For anybody listening from Boulder, they know the Aristocrat Steakhouse, which was a college and or hungover person's hangout, below their engineering group. And that the building itself is an historic building that has like this circular turret-shaped thing that hangs out over the intersection. That was their engineering office. Coolest ass thing you've ever seen. And at the time, I didn't know any better, but it was like, that's where Dad works. Anyway.
And it was prime real estate. And who could have known that Golden, Colorado and Boulder, Colorado were going to turn out to be the places that they ended up being? But so luck of the day.
Well, apparently he knew that, the answer to that, because, and Dwayne, I'm sure, could school us for PhD levels of why this is, but, like development restrictions in Boulder helped to prop up values over the long haul. And they were the first ever engineering group in the town that could take you from drawings to building all at once. And that propelled them into big commercial developments like schools and airports and hospitals. And he was an HVAC guy, so the hospital airport part of HVAC, super involved. And anyway, so I witnessed that growing up. He was just a workaholic. He was a Depression era, work till you die kind of guy. In the background, my mother was a mathematician and physics major, was told early on that she could not be an engineer because that was a man's job. So instead, she became a teacher. And so I lived in a household with an engineer and a teacher, super mathematically oriented. By the time I was kind of aware, Copper Mountain was being built. So my mother was from a skiing pioneer family. My grandfather had fought in World War I in France and intersected sort of tangentially with 10th Mountain Division in World War I. They came to fame in World War II, but by then, post-World War II, he had 2 little girls at home, living up in West Highlands, and where he built a house that's exactly as it was when he built it. By the way, I have it on a search where I'm like, the minute that one comes for sale, Amanda, I want to buy it.
We got to go find it. Yeah.
But anyway, he was like, skiing is cool. We're gonna all learn to ski. And so he would drive my mom and her sister up to the top of Berthoud Pass, and they'd ski the 7-mile trail. Like, was there avalanche awareness classes or any, safety being taken?
No, there was none of that.
Of course not.
And they thumbed their way back up.
And they were on, wooden skis with no edges that were 250 centimeters long or something crazy. And anyway, so she was a skiing gal from Colorado. He came from Virginia because he was 4F for World War II. They met at Colorado University. She taught him to ski. Copper Mountain Development came along. There were some steps in between. They had a chance in 1949 or 50 or so to buy the Jerome Hotel in Aspen. He and his engineering buddies, most of whom had been in World War II and came back with this 10th Mountain Division passion for skiing. Many of those guys were responsible for starting ski operations in New Hampshire and Vermont and upstate New York and Vail and Aspen and Winter Park. And they had 4 kids. Well, they didn't have 4 kids yet, but they had this, burgeoning family. And the Jerome Hotel, he and his partners had a chance to buy it for $50,000.
This is your dad. Your dad had an opportunity to buy a hotel in Aspen, and they probably were like, we don't want to spend the money. Who will ever stay here?
They didn't have the money. It was $50,000, which to them at that time was like the national debt. I think he might have been earning $5,000 a year. And she had, and this leads into the Boulder connection. She had a job teaching math.
Your mom?
First, she taught at North High School and then Smiley Junior High in the Denver public schools. And she was making like $2,000 a year, maybe. I don't know. Something that sounds like $0 today. But she had a pension. So fast forward a little while. They they missed out the Aspen opportunity. A few years later, Vail was coming out of the ground, and for $10,000 you could have a stake in the development of Vail, which gave you a vacant, undeveloped lot in town and lifetime passes for yourself and your family. It's sort of like yourself and your real estate in the IRA family. Down lineal, but not adjacent. So your in-laws couldn't have the pass, but your children could.
Right.
And bunch of his buddies from World War II did that. And there's one of them. They're all passed away now, but one of them, the family still owns undeveloped dirt in the confines of downtown Vail. I can't even begin to think about how much it's worth.
Mm-hmm. But so then you end up...
So then Copper Mountain came.
Right. You end up as a piece of Copper Mountain shows itself to your family.
They then, a couple, 3, 5, 10 years later, it was 10 years later, the concept for Copper Mountain came along. And by now...
Because Breckenridge and Keystone were already there.
Keystone and Copper Mountain came along the same time. Breck was already there.
Uh-huh.
A Basin already there. Loveland already there. Berthoud already there. Winter Park already there.
Yes.
Copper and Keystone were the newest concept. And Keystone, of course, was built by a different group of people. But they had this chance, and they knew the developers. And so they began they developed the first condominium buildings at Copper. And condo, as a housing type, was a rather new concept. It wasn't brand new, but at the resorts, they had to have a lease from the Forest Service. So they didn't own the land underneath the building they were building, 99-year lease. And then, the common interest community was a rather new concept. Not incredibly new, but they all bought in. Because of his seniority, he got the best choice of location in the building. So he took the not the first floor, which was all commercial, but southwest corner of the next floor up, the second floor. View of the mountain, sunset, ski home. It was so great.
So you spend your youth going to this condo?
Yeah, and learning to ski at Copper. And by now, again, my brothers were all...
Much older.
Didn't really get the benefit of this experience because they were on their way to college, in high school, busy, they knew how to drive, whatever. They had a whole different life. Mm-hmm. And I have a sister who's 4 years older, and she and I really were the beneficiaries of this mountain experience.
This life, yeah.
And it kind of, I would use the word ruin, except for that.
It was such a lovely life,
it's not ruined, but it ruined me for real work because... Of course, I followed in the engineering footsteps and went to CU, and I have degrees in engineering and math, but never really practiced. Have had a couple odd jobs in the engineering field here and there, but as this engineering development company kept rolling on, and mind you, they started in the 70s and then were immediately faced with an oil crisis and then an interest rate crisis and then whatever else, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't profitable and for a long while. Neither was the ski industry. So I learned to ski quite well as a young person and decided that I want to be a ski racer. In no small part because we had competitions at Copper Mountain where we got to witness firsthand World Cup ski racing.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what we're going to do. So I did. I ski raced. And I ski raced at college, and that was disastrous because, unlike Dwayne, I couldn't balance engineering school and ski racing at the same time. It was too hard.
But this is how you kind of meet Dwayne. You meet Dwayne as this connection between Boulder, and he was in real estate.
So I graduated in engineering, but in the meantime met my now husband. We've been married 34 years at Copper Mountain.
Right.
And took on a supposed part-time job as a ski instructor to fund my ski racing career ongoing. And that's like the extinction burst of ski racing is you try at the end to keep it going somehow or another, because it's expensive and also impossible. But so I was teaching skiing, met my now husband. That evolved into a career in the ski industry. And literally, I did every single possible job at Copper Mountain you can think of, including everything from stuffing envelopes for the marketing department to planting pansies in the medians in the summertime to transplanting turf on the golf course to you name it. I don't know. But in the meantime, I gained like every last skill to run a business, small, medium, large business, whatever, unwittingly. And I say that I got penalized when I started ski coaching. Again, it was a, I don't know what you call it. It was like the best way to be a ski bum and get paid to do it. And then
I'm still trying to get to your real estate career. Do you see me trying to get you to your real estate career?
I'm getting closer. It's the least important part of my life, however. And I say that with 100% irony. But
well, and love and gratitude for the business, but yeah.
But so I got penalized because I was smart. You know, like, oh, she knows how to use a database. Oh, she could run this event for us. Oh, well, let's make her director. You know, so pretty soon I'm director. And thinking that was such a great accomplishment. I remember telling my mom that I got promoted as director of what we now call Team Summit, which is a huge juggernaut of an organization today. But back then it was like a shoestring thing. And they were going to pay me $30,000 to run the club. And she says to me, what are you going to do in the summer? And I'm like, oh, no, that's year round. Oh, my God. Well, anyway, so in walks Dwayne Duggan with his two little boys.
Yes. Who were ski racers.
Who wanted to be ski racers, and they were super qualified. I mean, like extra athletic. And Dwayne, of course, had ski raced at CU much more successfully than I ever did. And it's ironic, as I'm driving down here listening to his story, and he would say, well, 20 years ago, blah, blah, or 10 years ago, this, that, or another thing, or I figured out this financial trick. And I'm thinking, well, you did that while you were on the chairlift. I'm pretty sure you figured that out while riding with some, you know, ski team dad who was a finance bro or something, because I was with you 20 years ago, you know, like that we were skiing. I don't know how you were working. But my mother, backtracking to the engineering firm, we built buildings where then there were condos to sell. And one of the other engineering partners' wives was a realtor. My mother was always like, why don't we have one of those? How come you? And everyone in our family was like, oh, no, we have people for that. Right. You know, in that voice, like, no. And so here I am. I am in the ski industry. I've deferred my engineering degree is expired now. And I'm like 30 years in, or no, not quite, 20 years in. And, you know, Dwayne comes into my life. And he's like, well, you know, you should really think about this. And in my genetic voice, I was like, no, never. I would never sell real estate. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So, you know, then I have two kids, and then I'm doing the budget. And your kids were little. And my kids were little. But at the same time, I'm like, 18 is going to roll around really quick, and then college. And by the way, we have no retirement. And also, this has been a kick in the butt, but I've blown out my knee a few times now, and probably can't keep doing this. And also, I'm in a room at a regional meeting for ski race coaches that is 100% men, except for me. Not that that matters that much, but at the same time, I was like, it was Mother's Day. And I stood up and I was like, you guys all should call your mother now, and I'm leaving. Bye. And so I quit sort of in the middle of being an overworked parent of two kids in the ski industry with no money. And I look back on it, and it could not have been better. You know, like, I have two really well-adjusted kids, and they love skiing, and they're great at it. Is that important in life? Some would argue no, but I don't know, can ride the coattail for a very long time of happiness.
Yeah. Well, and you think of just like the groundwork that your grandfather, you know, your dad or whatever, like that these generations lay. Yeah. To have your kids just enjoy the sport of skiing. And like to just go like make some turns on a Saturday. And
the thing I experience now, so I got into, I sat back after quitting the ski team job and said, what now? And another friend of mine who had sort of a similar parallel story was actually the child care provider for my kids at a home daycare facility. Her husband's a real estate attorney. So I called her one day. We're best friends. And I called her one day and I was like, why don't you and I go get a real estate license? And she's like, oh, dang it. I've been thinking about doing that. I just needed somebody to talk me into it. Oh. And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
So this was what year?
2003,
2003.
I think. I think it spilled into 2004. And then so we have the license, whatever. Go take the test. You got a license. Anyone who's listening to this, that's the easiest damn part of the whole thing.
Well, for an engineer, it is. Okay.
I mean, they make it, even if you don't pass the first time, it's like, come back 24 hours later. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, but what you know about the business, though, is the barrier to entry is very low and it's very easy. And it is very hard to be successful at this because you have to be scrappy and have come through your life's experiences to make anything of yourself as a real estate broker. So, but wait, you're hilarious and I love this and I'm really enjoying your story, but I need to know. So you go to
Remax,
a word in
edgewise.
And you start working for
our friend Butch.
Yeah.
And I knew Butch. We were friends.
It's a small town. How many people live in Frisco? Permanent residents.
2,500 permanent residents.
Okay.
Maybe not that many. But enough so that you know them all when you're at the grocery store.
And how many people visit the ski mountain each ski season? So how much tourism is coming through? Millions.
Yeah. I mean, between the 5 resorts, there are several million skier days. Now, that might be the same person numerous times, right? So
a lot. But the point is there's this tiny little contingent of permanent residents in town.
Here's a better metric. In Summit County alone, in Summit County as a whole, there are about 33,000 residents.
Okay.
But there is bed capacity to sleep over 300,000 people. So, yeah, about 10 to 1 if you packed the place to the gills every night.
Right.
Now, that doesn't happen very often. Or another metric we use is more than 2 out of 3 homes are second homes.
So you come into real estate in this tiny market where everybody knows everybody, and you're a ski racer first, but then people start to know you as a real estate agent. And so how do you build a reputation? How did you pivot? And all these people who want to buy second homes, how do you come to counsel these people who just think it's going to be fun to land on the mountain and own a house and ski?
Yeah, so I knew Butch and actually had asked Dwayne, I was like, so at the time, imagine entering and I think, how long have you done this?
In 2003. I got my license in the same year.
Okay, so imagine, for those listening, entering this real estate market at the ramp up to the frenzy, right? Like in 2003, 4, 5, 6, arguably in our market, which lags your market by about a year or 18 months, 7, most of 8. We didn't crash until the beginning, first quarter of 9.
Right.
This is easy.
The business was easy.
You could sell real estate with your eyes closed, whatever. And so I came into the market then and foisted myself on Butch. I was like, you're busy. You need help. I'll work for you for free. Just teach me how to do this job. And he was happy to have the help because licensed help, let alone, and kept to work.
Showing up.
I just came to work every day. And he would be like, so we need to make salad today. I'd be like, what? Why is that part of real estate? Well, we're going to do a broker open and they have to have food. So not only did I make salad, but I
planting pansies and making salad.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, like another time it would be, we're about to list this house in he and I both live in the same neighborhood, which is this hodgepodge of homes in unincorporated Summit County, but immediately adjacent to the town of Frisco. We're going to list a house in this neighborhood, and first we have to clean it. And I'm thinking, I got rubber gloves, Comet, no problem. Well, we're in a dumpster. We're in a 15-yard dumpster cleaning out the crawl space and the previous long-term rental where the same tenants had been for umpteen tens of decades. And I'm like, this job kind of sucks at the moment. Maybe it'll get better. And of course it did get better, but these are the things. I started showing up. I taught him how to make a database. We converted from some dumb CRM to
a non-dumb CRM.
It's just as dumb, but it's the one everybody has. What's that one that everybody has? Top Producer. There we go. And I was like, this is going to be great. And then, of course, we didn't use it, so it wasn't great. But
they're only as good as the amount you give them.
And the way you asked a question that I will actually answer, that where I got my people was from the ski area, from ski racing. Mm-hmm. I sent out postcards saying, hey, I'm still coaching skiing, but I'm also doing this other thing. And so call me. And my first ever client, was a volunteer ski patrolman that my husband knew. So my husband's actually responsible for
He'll take the credit for that lead?
Yeah. And those people have been, I mean, I get a Christmas card from them, not vice versa, every year. And it was, not only was it my first client, but the entry most level product in our market at the time in a non-warrantable condo building.
Which is a very tricky transaction, actually.
I thought
you cut your teeth on what seems like it's going to be an easy deal, and it is not an easy deal.
And meanwhile, and this is something else I learned from your podcast, Butch went out of town. Your dad went out of the country or whatever the heck, and Butch went out of town, and here I am like, what does non-warrantable mean? You know, like, oh, but you still need a mortgage? Are you sure? It's only $90,000, you know? It was a $90,000 transaction in 2004. And they parlayed that into a bigger one in the same building and then a bigger one in an adjacent complex. They're still there, actually, and on an automated search.
What do you think happens to the mountain towns? Do you think they just continue to be roaringly expensive and successful, and people will continue to do second homes and short-term rentals? I mean, where do you think that market goes?
That's such a hard question. I came here for the easy questions. Just kidding. I mean, the ski industry in Colorado is huge, and that is why people come to Summit County, Colorado. There's such thing as too much of a good thing, and I think the big boy in the room, who shall remain unnamed, is feeling that right now. I'll just say it's Vail Resorts. There's too much of a good thing there. Their resorts are oversold, parking lots are overfilled, their product is too expensive. Everybody has access, but then the experience is not necessarily enjoyable.
Well, this is because of the advent of selling season passes and how they monetized,
absolutely,
more skiers
and
for
the
less
imperialism
money.
of Vail Resorts around the world. I mean, you can buy an Epic Pass and go to one
Austria
of how
or
many
whatever.
are
Yeah.
there? 50 resorts or some crazy thing. And so people do that. They're like, well, we're going to buy it in Minnesota, but we get to go to Vail, and then they do, and the experience, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of biased, arguably. But I don't know that the experience is what they were thinking, because you got to get there from DIA, or maybe you have to drive there on I-70. You got to find your condo. You got a list of things until you're actually doing the thing that you came here to do. By the time you're doing it, you've spent thousands,
20,000.
tens of thousands, yes.
$20,000.
And so that's a perfect segue, because then you say to them, well, you need to have a place here.
Yes.
And it'll pay you back while you're not here. Well, that is fraught with trouble as well in the current day market, because
then you have these houses that these rich people from Maryland own that sit empty or whatever.
Well, really, they're from Texas and California and Florida. But yeah, I suppose we have a few from Maryland too. The community has identified, as they have in your mountain town, and which is Winter Park, or in Jackson, or in Telluride, or in Aspen, or in Long Island, or in the Bahamas, or wherever you are, in Costa Rica. The people who actually live there were impacted by the advent of short-term rentals being made easy by the likes of VRBO and Airbnb. I'm not taking anything away from that enterprise, except for to say that if you're going to run a rental operation, it's not exactly as DIY as you think it is. And this is manifested by you buy and in the day of low interest and easier acquisition to the properties, you could buy your $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 condo in Breckenridge, 2 bedrooms, throw it in a rental management program, or throw it up on VRBO or Airbnb,
yep.
And you're an hour away, maybe an hour and a half, and it's decently easy to go to Costco and buy paper towel and hire a local cleaning company and keep your head above water. Today,
they're $2 million. And the
they're
local
$2 million.
cleaning people are coming from Gypsum to clean in Frisco, which is an
Correct.
hour and 40-minute drive over 2 mountain passes or whatever.
And they need a living wage, which is justifiable.
It's not nothing, yeah.
And so the communities were like, well, there's 16 people parked where there should be 6, and the trash bin is overflowing.
And has been for 3 days.
And the only way to get any response to that is to call law enforcement, because I can't get my car out and I need to go to the airport.
Except there's one sheriff in town, and he's down there manning the jail from the 2 guys who were fighting on the mountain yesterday. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, no, that is in fact what he's doing. The sheriff that you call is like, I don't care. Or we have a new hashtag, nobody cares. It's like, so regulations got put in place.
Yes.
And this is not unique to Summit County, Colorado. This is resort towns all over, at least Colorado, if not the nation, if not the world,
Yeah.
where travel was made easy, acquisition of the property was made easy. And so now we're in this situation where to buy the, quote, rental property that you can also enjoy, you said it yourself, it's well over $1 million. It might not be all the way up to $2 million, but it is still feasible. There are still properties that are attainable, but the work to make them part of your portfolio is much greater than it used to be. You have to bank in sort of a metaphorical way on the benefit that you yourself get from that property,
Right.
rather than the bank account,
The short-term rental market it was really a game changer in your market, the way STRs came in. Because before that, you could do like a RCI was a resort exchange.
Yeah.
You know, where you could
exchange
put a
international.
week in and then you trade your week for a week at somebody else's condo in
Well,
Hawaii.
I mean, I think short-term rentals were, when Dad built his first condo building, we rented it short-term through the resort. So Copper Mountain Resort Inc. was
so they were doing
was the
short-term
manager.
rentals, right?
They
Even
mandated,
before.
and this was true at Keystone when I first started in the in the real estate business, is that you could buy the unit, but you were simultaneously signing an agreement that KPM, Keystone Property Management, got to rent it for you.
Right.
And so then when Airbnb kind of came along, owners were like, well, we could do this for so much less.
Yes.
And so then Keystone was like, you do your own thing, but we're not going to help you. And then they figured out, oh, no, that's bad. We need to let them do that. And so it turned into, we'll do it, and then if you have blanks, you can fill them and take 100% of the proceeds. And then that turned into, we'll just compete with each other.
Right. Well, that's ultimately what happened. And so it's just fascinating that even in spite of our ability or desire to control even a small mountain town, the markets are so powerful, they'll do their own thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the kernel right there, which is that I, for one, I've said out loud or to myself, I'm going to sit back and stay in the channel. Like, I'm not going to try to swim upstream. I'm not going to try to make waves, because Jace Glick says, love life and what is
living, loving, and dying.
Yeah,
he always says.
That's going to keep happening. And the aspect of generational wealth is something that you and Dwayne didn't actually touch on, but that's why I am where I am. Like, sadly, that greatest generation left me and my family with some real estate. Some of my family members, the eldest in particular, is a finance bro. So he wanted to sell his part and manage his own cash in a different way. He has his wealth built on the market, right? The stock market. I was like, no, we're keeping the real estate. And, to my kids, I've said, listen, we're never selling this. That was my mom and dad's advice. Buy it, never sell it. Maybe trade, but don't ever divest yourself of these investments. And, so my kids know that they're like your kids listening to the real estate advice at age 5. They know that what we have in our hand right now is going to help them get over this current situation, which is really rough for kids entering the real estate market. Like, yeah, the perception is that interest rates are high and inventory is low and taxes are high and it's expensive and whatever else, but get your foot in the door somehow or another. It doesn't matter how. It does sometimes matter how. Like, we have a deed-restricted product that handcuffs you to no appreciation, but nonetheless, you can get into something that then you can parlay into something else. Do it.
That's like the best piece of advice. If I had to ask you for a piece of advice, it's that, right? Which
It's
is
that.
to get your foot in the door, to buy something and trade it if you can. Dwayne talked about this, but
Trade it if you can.
Trade it if you can, and keep it, and don't let go.
Don't let go. I mean, obviously, you want to let go if it's not performing. If you're losing money hand over fist, figure out a way to change that into something that doesn't do that. But to rent forever, or God forbid, have no place to live, no, not an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you never thought comedy for yourself then, huh?
no, I have. And in fact, the word of the year, who wrote that book? What's that?
What? One word?
One word, yeah.
By John Gordon.
My word is retire.
Yes, you're going to do that one of these days.
Yeah,
but
I am pointed. I've got
But
all
you
my...
could retire to a comedy show, Paula, and it would be
You and
very
me.
hilarious, and it would keep everybody laughing as you did.
Except it would make people mad because I would just like make fun of them, you know, like...
Well, but I mean, I think that's what
I'd be
comedians
like
do.
Rodney
I think that's
Dangerfield.
why they why people laugh, because you only laugh at comedy when it's actually true. So
Okay, well, we'll do that.
yeah, I think
hear
that's
you.
something to look into.
Is your word of the year also retire?
It's not, it's gratitude, and I am grateful for you to have come here and
I should
done
have
my
that word. That's a better
podcast.
word, probably.
Paula Parker, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This is fun.
feel like I talk too much.
I liked it, and it made me laugh.
Okay.
All right, second career.
Bye.
Out of real estate, second career into comedy.